What's up, everybody?
My name is Anthony Irvin.
You beat yourself?
Yeah, CB myself.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm Jim Green.
Don't even need a hit of being traffic light.
Okay, good.
Welcome to
One set.
Hey You.
Hey, man. I am excited about this because this is just something that you and I came up with like minutes ago. Literally.
Right.
And totally, I mean, I had an idea to do a thing that pertained to maybe a movie or a TV series. And then you were like, let's do this. And I was like, okay, but that's going to get pretty involved. So this is going to be part one of 4.
Right.
And we're going to go in reverse order. So you can hate it all you want, but we made sense of it. We're going to talk about Game of Thrones, what ifs, alternate endings, if things went a different direction. How would the rest pan out? And we're starting it from the end because, number one, season 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones, granted, the story wasn't fully out there to the public. So the showrunners were just like, okay, well, we have to go off of like the outline here and try to make sense of it. And the actors that were contracted to it were like, we want to wrap this up. It could have totally went 10 seasons, and we've talked about that. And anyone that knows Game of Thrones and understands like how involved that it is knows it could have went on for way longer. So we're gonna start the what ifs or the alternate endings for certain scenarios, starting at the end, and then each chronological episode after this is going to work itself backwards in the timeline. And then it's just going to make everything a little bit more complicated. And by a little bit, I mean, a
Whoopsie.
more complicated, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get wild, right?
Right. And this is kind of banking off of like episodes that we've done before with alternate endings. We did alternate endings back earlier in the year with Disney. So this is kind of an alternative in itself to kind of just start talking about, other like TV shows or movies or something. But we scrambled upon this idea to make this kind of a little bit of a series too. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to this because we've done a lot of Game of Thrones concepts on the pod, but going into like an alternative ending, and I like how we're breaking this up because there's so much detail that this would be almost like a 3-4 hour podcast episode. And, we're not Joe Rogan here, so.
At minimum, I mean, honestly, for the entire series of all of the what ifs that you could do, I mean, there's a finite number of what ifs you could do, but it could take us years to accomplish those in episodes that were, anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour and a half a piece.
Right.
Literally, it could be all of season 3 of our podcast. We would love to hear your input, especially if you've read the books and you're like, this doesn't really make sense because of this. Let us know. Like we have not read the books. We've watched the show, and you've watched it through twice. I've watched it through, I think, 2.
I don't count the first time, so I think I've done it twice. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, anyone that even tried, to binge the seasons, you were just catching up. right?
Mhm.
And I think it is absolutely a story that you need to watch 2 episodes max in a day and digest it and maybe walk away from it for a day and think about it the next day and then watch the next 2.
Mhm.
That's how involved it is. And before, and I preached to you that you should watch the show because I heard how cool it was.
Mhm.
And not just how cool it was, but like the storytelling and how involved that it was. And again, anyone that's read the books can say, "Oh, you only watch the show. You don't even know, like, a fraction of it, right?"
Right.
So, again, just like we're not sports gurus on the front that like we can talk about the history of all of the sports. We're casual fans.
Yeah.
So we're not out here trying to say we know everything about this. This is just our take on the things, right?
100%.
So, without further ado, I think we should get into it. The very first thing we should talk about is, and you should not be watching these episodes if you haven't watched the show before, because this is all spoiler,
Yeah.
spoiler, and we'll listen to details or the description. Not that we expect everyone to read them, but we're telling you now, if you haven't watched the show, wait to tune into the episodes until after you've watched the show. Okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
And we're doing this. Okay. And Brandon Stark is named the head of the realm at the very end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we could probably spend this entire episode on, well, what if this person was head instead? What if this? What if that? So let's just pick our preferences as to who we wished actually were the head of the realm. Let's make that make sense first.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it. But
And-
what do you think?
And before we do that,
When you're talking about hydration is not only for people training for championships and marathons. We're talking about daily maintenance people. Jim, did you know that 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated?
I believe it, Anth. I mean, honestly, in my line of work, dealing with teaching children and also dancing with adults my age, younger and older, I can almost tell based off of how well people not just perform athletically, but how we carry ourselves and how we communicate back and forth, our facial gestures and just our energy alone. I can tell when somebody's sluggish and they're sleep deprived versus they're just sluggish because they're a dried up sponge because they are dehydrated, right?
Absolutely. And for people like me who are working the 9 to 5 and, for me gigging at night, proper hydration is definitely crucial to maintain function throughout the day and keeping yourself energized. And that's why proper functional hydration is essential. And who's going to give it to you? Liquid IV, because Liquid IV is the #1 powered hydration brand in America. Their hydration multiplier is the one product you're missing in your daily routine. I like to use it first thing in the morning. I've been doing a lot of workouts here and there, so I pop it in my water bottle first thing in the morning. Gives me a little boost of energy of what I need. And sometimes during the day when I'm doing that like 2 o'clock rundown, I'll pop a little one. If not in the morning, it gives me a little bit of that energy that I need. With just one stick, you can hydrate real life 2 times faster than water alone, plus get essential vitamins and 3 times the electrolytes as the leading sports drink. And not only that, Liquid IV comes in 12 delicious, refreshing flavors to keep your hydration routine exciting.
Yeah, Anth, I mean, for me personally, like my day to day, I'll wake up and pop a Liquid IV just to get my day started and start off with proper hydration. And then I am like required to be physically active between the hours of like 2 or 3 p.m. until 9, 10, 11, sometimes midnight if I'm doing a backup gig. So I'll do another one maybe around noon, 1 p.m., and that'll keep me going throughout the day. And I just feel so much better. I don't even drink coffee on the regular like that because I don't need to pick me up unless if I'm like really just not sleeping much. And then I'm like, all right, get me that. I don't like to rely on caffeine unless I absolutely feel like I need it. Liquid IV does the trick for me. I don't know about you.
Again, one stick with Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you 2 times faster and more efficient than water alone. It contains 5 essential vitamins with 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drinks, and it's made with quality ingredients, non-GMO, and free of gluten, dairy, and soy.
Liquid IV believes that equitable access to clean and abundant water is the foundation of a healthier world. They partner with leading organizations to fund and foster innovative solutions that help communities protect both their water and their futures. To date, Liquid IV has donated over 39 million servings in 50 plus countries around the world.
Yeah, man. Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use our code 1SETPOD. That's 1SETPOD and at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code 1SETPOD at liquidiv.com. Dude, I've been getting this annoying itching feeling under my armpits from the deodorants I've been trying and using, and I can't seem to find something that works for me.
Have you ever tried maybe like a natural deodorant?
Natural deodorant? No. Are you insane?
No, but I am wild.
Oh,
Wild is the UK's #1 natural deodorant company that focuses on performance, sustainability, and style.
Their mission is to clean up the bathrooms by leaving it free of ugly, single-use plastic bottles and unnecessary chemicals.
You know why Wild is great? Because it actually works and it's eco-friendly and contains over 98.5% natural ingredients.
They have a fully sustainable design with aluminum cases that last for a lifetime, plus biodegradable, recyclable refills. And you know what's cool? They can actually imprint your name on these aluminum cases for a small additional fee.
Wild is super convenient with flexible subscription options or paying as one-off purchases. And you can customize your order by choosing your case, color, and various scent combinations. I know I have the Ocean Mist, the Fresh Cotton and Sea Salt, and the Orange and Neroli flavors, and they all smell super great. And what's best about them is they don't just wear off immediately, and then all of a sudden you smell like BO.
Yeah, I've been rocking the sandalwood and patchouli scent right now. And again, great scent, lasts like throughout the day, that you're pretty much protected throughout the day. And I also was able to try the mint and aloe vera. Big aloe vera fan, right on point, long lasting, and you can look forward to these cases and scents in a limited edition every month.
Go Wild today with a special discount of 25% off your first order when you get the code 1SETPOD at checkout. Go to wearewild.com and use the code 1SETPOD at checkout and enjoy.
Have you ever wanted to start your podcast but didn't know where to start? The One Set Bros are here to talk to you about Zencastr. Zencastr is the ultimate base podcasting solution and now the all-in-one podcasting platform, making podcasting easy. They've sure made it easy for us to be able to record our podcast and our episodes every week for you guys. Once you've set up your account, you're simply one click away from recording a high-quality podcast with studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. My personal favorite feature is their multi-layer backups, which ensure our recordings are always in the highest quality, even during unstable web connections. And if you thought you needed multiple tools and services for your podcast, Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform allows you to create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code OneSetPod, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences we do with all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
We're only speaking on behalf of how we felt watching the episode. We're not talking about we want these alternative things to pan out to reflect the previous things, because we're not even there yet. We haven't even talked about them, right? So we're speaking as of right now. I definitely wanted Jon Snow to take the Iron Throne. He was the rightful heir, and I think they positioned that well with the twist at the end of season 7. With you finding out he's actually a Targaryen, which I don't think they paid off at all in the show. And I'm sure the books, if they're ever a thing, if they ever get released, which my take is George R. R. Martin is just sitting on the books finished and just leaving them to be published to pay his family once he's dead and gone. That's just my opinion. Because what are you waiting for? Or if you have it done, why else are you holding it from everybody? That's just how I feel about it. I could 100% be wrong, and that's fine. But I would have liked to see Jon Snow lead the realms. Granted, he fell into all of these positions. King of the North, it was all of these things that he didn't want. But when Brandon Stark was positioned as the leader of the realm, he was like, I don't want it. And I'm like, okay, well, if you don't want it, and Jon Snow didn't want it, but
then who will?
Everybody, not everybody. I can't even say the majority. There were way more people that trusted Jon Snow and would have believed he would have led the realm versus out of nowhere, Brandon Stark just gets it. Because Ned Stark was decapitated. Oh, he's the three-eyed raven. Oh, he sees everything. He knows everything. It's cool.
Coming to know that he kind of knew it all along.
Yeah. He foresaw it happen. And he was just like, yep, well, I'm doing this because this was my destiny. I didn't want it, but this is who I'm supposed to be. I don't know. Pretty anticlimactic. The fact that Vegas had odds for
The
fact that Vegas had odds for who was getting the Iron Throne, and it was like Bran Stark was at the top, and everyone's like, that's what makes sense as far as full circle storytelling goes back to episode 1 when he got pushed out of the window, and the Valyrian steel dagger that was meant to kill him is a big part. It's even a part of House of the Dragon now. And when I say now, I mean that story happened before, so it's fine. Dude, outside of Jon Snow, what do you think? I mean, I would have liked Daenerys to be, the queen on the Iron Throne before she went full-blown mad and just blew up King's Landing. Like, when she sets sail, I think it's the end of season 6, which end of season 6 going into 7 is that's the boundary
Okay.
that we're going to for the episode.
Yeah.
So the stuff before that, we're gonna save for parts 2, 3, and 4 of this installment. Okay. I would have liked Daenerys to be on the throne. At that point, I was rooting for her. I was kind of always. I was rooting for Jon Snow because he just seemed like the voice of reason. He tried to be very much the voice of reason, as much as he didn't want that leadership title or responsibility. People just looked at him as a leader and said, "Hey, we trust you.
We trust you." Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I spoke my piece. Your turn.
Nah, I have to agree with both of those. That I think we all would have wanted John as number one because rightful heir. It makes sense. Because with his character arc, it all made sense, and the fact that they gave the point that he was a Targaryen, he was the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. So you're like, all right, well, nobody's in his way technically, but you knew him and Daenerys were not going to be, equals at that point. So you knew there was going to be some type of climax with it. But when it comes to Daenerys, her character arc was always the fact that, okay, she is the one to take back the Iron Throne that was taken from her family. So that was the thing that was pitched to her from day one. So you were like, okay, she's getting closer. Every season, she's getting closer and closer and closer. So it was easy to, be behind her because you're like, all right, she's doing it. She gets closer every season. I'm with her. I want to see her get it to the end. But then once she got to the end, boom, she, becomes what everybody thought that she was going to be.
The Mad Queen. Yeah.
Right. And watching it again, a lot of people, were assuming that like, oh yeah, she's, you saw that her character was changing into that like Mad Queen type of esque thing. But I think it was more Cersei's, kind of gameplay that she knew that Dany was able to turn pretty quick, that she had a pretty, quick temper. So she used that to her advantage to be like, hey, if you really want this city, you're gonna have to tear down everything, and I know that you'll do that. So I think she just played into the game and just made her go mad. I don't think Dany went mad by herself. I think the things around her, pushed her to become that, if that makes sense. I don't think if those things were to have happened, I think she would have had a better ending. But I think due to the fact that, Missandei being decapitated, being one of her first dragons was taken down, and losing a lot of her army during season 7. They lost the Iron Bank when Yara's army got taken over. Dorne, they all got captured and everything. So and it was pretty much with the Lannister army kind of taking up arms with all that stuff. So I think all those events just started making her mind switch, and like she's like, I have these dragons here. Why am I not using it to just destroy everything with what I want? Because that's all that she ever wanted. She could have easily just done that. And I think that's what Barris and Selmy was saying. Like, you could literally have, what you want tomorrow. You can go down there with your dragons and just go, pump fire on everybody, and you can have the Iron Throne by tomorrow. But that's not the queen you want to be. But she eventually did that, but I don't think she did it on her own bias. I think, like I said, I think it was just more people playing the game of knowing that she was going to be that way. So
yeah, I definitely think the things surrounding her got into her head, because
yeah,
Tyrion tried to talk her down off of a ledge multiple times.
Yes.
And people can argue, oh, hey, that's because he just didn't want to see, like, Cersei and Jaime get burned and murdered kind of thing, which I think
Right.
we see pan out into, and I think Cersei's death needed to be, and poetic justice and how it wasn't fulfilled for some of us, for certain characters, she's number one. Like, she needed a better write-off, but I can understand from the story end of it, now that we're talking about it, that Tyrion tried to prevent Daenerys from doing all of the things to get Cersei and Jaime killed because he withheld faith for his family deep down amidst his father wanted him dead. He killed his father back in season 4. An iconic scene and a huge twist in him getting shipped off and winding up with Daenerys. Huge pivotal moment for the story, right?
Right.
And I think that, and I'm like very reluctant to say, I guess in the grand story of it, it's Tyrion finds Jaime and Cersei under the bed of rocks once Daenerys burns King's Landing the way that she did. It's supposed to feed into that story to make him say, I tried my damnedest to save them, even when they both wanted me dead at some point. Granted, Jaime was such a good character. His character arc across the show is so good. It's so good. His character arc, the way that they took him from this, entitled royalty guy in the family.
Yeah.
But the fact that they said early on in the show, like, oh, look at your list of no accomplishments as royalty. And for Brienne to go in and right after Jaime left him, and she let her guard down for this one guy, that's such a great part of that story.
Yeah.
This just makes me want to go back and watch the show again, as much as I despise so much about how it was ended.
Right. Yeah, I was just watching like the last 2 seasons, just like, I can see like how fast they were going, and I can see like where a lot of the stuff wasn't getting paid off. But it's like, you can't do nothing about it. But it's like you wish they had elongated a lot of things, because so many things were just compacted and just be like, all right, well, this happened, okay, that's done, let's get to the next thing and ship these off to sale.
Well, and the problem is they took 6 seasons with good detail to build so many storylines that if those first 6 seasons had moved at that same rate, once you got to 7 and 8, it would be fine.
Right.
I think it's the fact that there was so much development, especially seasons 2 through 4. 5 had development, 6 had development, but they did so much building in the earlier on seasons that you got to 7 and 8, and then just things happened at face value, which we talked about. It's like there wasn't any underlying, there wasn't anything that was like, there were so many episodes in the earlier parts of the series that it was like, oh, we're going to go into depth about this, and then we're going to make you forget about it for a couple episodes, and then it's like, oh, by the way, this happened, and you're like, oh my God, wait. There was no opportunity for that. It was just, hey, this is over here, this is over here. They tried, to do it, but it still felt so rushed. So rushed.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So
I just thought of another like, I guess alternative ending, but alternative situation that we can segue into here because it's within the 7th and 8th seasons. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I was thinking, what if the Night King never turned one of Danny's dragons?
okay, that's on my list of things to talk about.
How cool? How more or how less effective would have the Night King been in the last episode? Obviously, going into the long night, how would his reign would have been? Oh.
So let's go backwards and try to stay in order here because we went from he should have sat on the Iron Throne at the end. We kind of agree on that, right?
Right.
I think my next big thing would be the Battle of Winterfell. Because for me, it's like, what if the dead plowed through Winterfell and they won that and kept going? Despite, hey, you could have Jon Snow could have survived. Arya could have survived. A lot of your key players could have survived, but the Night King could have gone on to King's Landing.
Mm-hmm.
Which was actually like one of, I think, Bran's warging Three-Eyed Raven visions from like season 3 or 4. And it showed the Night King looking at the Iron Throne. It's like, okay, this guy's coming for it. This guy's coming for it. So
yeah.
And this is tough because this whole thing happened. No, this was season 7 where they all met, and this was right before you find out that Jon Snow. No. That means, hold on.
Nah,
things are blurring.
I think
things are blurring. No, end of season 7 is when they all meet in Dragonstone. Jon, Daenerys, Cersei, and Cersei says, "I'll lend my army to you to help fight the war." And then she was just totally playing everyone because she's playing the Game of Thrones, right?
Still playing the Game of Thrones, yeah.
Yeah. Drank. So I think that was gonna be a thing no matter what, if Cersei gets to that point. And we can go talk about that once we get back to seasons 5 and 6, because the High Scepter, the Walk of Atonement, all of that stuff where Cersei's supposed to go on a trial and then she just blows up.
Yeah. Which was insane.
That was season 6, episode 10. And that's when the Reigns of Castamere song is playing, and it's so iconic. It's so good. And that is going to be in part 2 of the installment, and we'll talk about that then.
We'll talk more about that, for sure.
Yeah. I think the bigger part is if the Night King with the dragon gets beyond Winterfell. Like, let's say it takes Winterfell and your certain key people survive. Key people have to die. Otherwise, not a thing.
Which I was very surprised they had a lot of the main characters live throughout that. I think when we were watching, we're like, we're at least getting 4 or 5 main characters dying in this episode because there's no way these people are going to live.
And that was the thing with Vegas too, was they were like, these are the odds of this person surviving the Battle of Winterfell, and this person and this person. This is your minus 5,000, and this is your plus 10 million.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest one was Theon Greyjoy and Jorah Mormont. He died. You know, I think his death was, you know, I guess you can say almost like he had a poetic justice because he died fighting for his queen who he loved, and all the, you know, good stuff that, you know, kind of goes into those type of relationships. He always wanted to, you know, protect and serve Dany. He was you know, kind of, you know, banned from her for a little while, and they came back together at one point. So him, you know, dying protecting her was the way he wanted to go anyway. So it was one of those things like, okay, at least they paid his character off in a way where he did what he needed to do. It's not like he just died on the field and like had not, like, okay, then he's done. At least at least they ended his character the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, and her being so emotional about him being like killed off. I think they did that right, and I think that hurt a lot of people, and I think that that's good storytelling. Is you got the emotion out of the audience that you needed for that person. I thought Theon's death, because before he ran after the Night King and got stabbed, you know, Bran said, "You're a good man, Theon." Like, after he had his junk piece chopped off, and his character arc is really good too. I mean, him going from he was a Stark boy to he turned totally evil in favor of like the Greyjoy house.
Yeah.
The Iron Islands. His whole abuse with Ramsay is so heart-wrenching. And this is that's season 5 and 6 talk. And we'll get to that. But I mean, we're talking about deaths in the show that actually had good payoff. That were like, they did that right. And it's sad to say there are so many good payoffs in the show, and we focus on they got it wrong with these key moments. The Night King, Arya killing him. I mean,
which was probably the biggest swerve of that season.
Well, because
nobody expected that to happen.
The expectation was Jon Snow needed to kill off the Night King, and I was waiting for it, just like I think a lot of us were. I am good with it happening at this point, but I was good with it happening when it happened if Jon Snow was taking the Iron Throne at the end. Like, like, I was okay with that not being his thing if he was going to go on. But they did I think they did a really nice job with how his conversation between him and Tyrion in the series finale was, death is the duty of love and love is the death of duty. Like, that whole concept that they wrote into it, and Jon Snow saying, Master Aemon told me this a long time ago. Pardon. Sorry. And Master Aemon himself was a Targaryen.
Right.
And the fact that he told Jon Snow, who nobody knew was a Targaryen.
At the time, yeah.
At the time. Winds up killing Daenerys to save the realm. Right? And I know this whole episode is supposed to be, well, what if this happened? And we're pigeonholing ourselves, and we're cornering ourselves into justifying why the things happen. We're supposed to be going different directions, right? As much as we crap on, it was rushed. I think, like, just analyzing and going back and thinking about everything, they did what they could to get the story wrapped up, and it was pretty okay. And when I say pretty okay, I mean the story was so great for 6 seasons, and then it was not the same for 7 and 8. Yeah.
Right.
There were so many quality moments that happened in 7 and 8. I mean, we know my favorite moment. You know my favorite moment. Season 7, episode 4, when Daenerys flies in, and we've talked about this on here before. Daenerys flies in with the Dothraki to take over the Lannister army, and they have that battle in the field.
And if you guys are on the Patreon, you guys got to see us do that as a watch along. And if you haven't, you guys can sign up and watch the watch along of us watching that scene. So that was one of Jim's favorite, episodes and scenes from Game of Thrones. So that was definitely one of the pivotal moments. And, again, if we're talking what ifs, what if Jaime actually got to Daenerys, maybe not killed her, but actually injured her at that last moment and didn't have the dragon, almost burn him?
Okay,
what if he would have actually got to Daenerys a little bit?
So I think we're skipping over the whole Night King makes it to King's Landing thing, because I think that would be the ultimate conclusion, and maybe we would have gotten a little bit more backstory on the White Walkers, because everyone's like, why are they going after the throne? Based off of watching the show, there's not a lot that talks about.
They really don't give a lot of detail on their motives or know what they were doing, blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice for them to give a little bit more detail on their motive, but like you said, maybe the books will explain it a little bit more.
And I think they were just like, well, the Battle of Winterfell, Arya's going to kill the Night King, and that's going to be the end of it. But we're talking alternate endings here. If they made it to King's Landing, if they made it to King's Landing, I think Jon Snow kills the Night King, and I think Arya kills Cersei because she was on her list. And that would have made it make sense. But again, not everything can be poetic justice. Everything has to have its swerves and its things like, well, it panned out this different way because of this, blah, blah, blah. And it's because we have these ideas of how our life pans out, and it never goes the way that we think. We get swerved all the time, and I think that that's what makes the show interesting, is like, oh, you thought that was going to happen? Nope, we did it different, right? And that's just life, right? So
absolutely.
Going back, let's go to, let's just say Jaime kills Daenerys in the field right then and there. What happens to Drogon? Does he just freak out, or does Jaime Lannister climb on the dragon and claim the dragon? And then you got Jaime on the dragon,
and then
at King's Landing.
Yeah,
at King's Landing, and then you have the Night King has his dragon, and then you have Jon Snow with the third dragon who wasn't killed yet. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
So a way different dynamic in that perspective, right?
Then you would have definitely had like a dragon battle for sure between that. That'd have been cool.
A triple threat. Yeah. And
never thought of it that way.
You could have done so much with that, because you could have had like the Lannister dragon trying to team up with Jon Snow's dragon to take out the Night King, but then the Lannister dragon being a snake in the grass like the Lannisters are, and then teaming up with the Night King to try to take out Jon Snow. And then you could have Jon Snow and their dragon being, or Jon Snow's dragon being done, and you think Jon Snow's dead, and then now it's just the Night King goes to King's Landing to fight off the Lannisters with their one dragon, and then out of nowhere, Jon Snow appears, and then you still have Jon Snow kill the Night King. You have Arya kill Cersei. You have Brienne killing Jaime, right? Like,
yeah,
something in that regard. Although Brienne is such like a noble knight of the Seven Kingdoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't knighted until the night before the Winterfell battle. So if Jaime Lannister climbed on the dragon, that whole thing with Jaime going back to King's Landing and him riding off in the sunset away from Cersei would have never been a thing. He would have just stayed in King's Landing, and it would have just been Lannister army with a dragon. Like, that whole Brienne story could have just kicked rocks, and I'd be okay with it because it was cute, but you could have lived without it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And when I sit, I mean, oh yeah, this is getting more interesting the further back we go, because I'm like, oh well, where's Daenerys? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Jaime stabbed her in the back, like he killed the Mad King by stabbing the sword in his back. He could have killed Daenerys. She could have been gone. He could have claimed her dragon, taken the gold back to King's Landing. It could have been a way different story. Way different story.
Way different.
Way. Way. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a kind of cool little concept. But I'm almost more interested what you think. I'm not sure if we kind of like touched on it a little bit. Like, I want to see what you think. Like, if the Night King didn't turn the dragon, I mean, obviously it would have been 2 against no dragons, but obviously we found out that Dragonfire did not kill the Night King, but he would have just eventually rose everybody up eventually, and which is still scary to this day to think about, because no matter how many people are dead on that field, in 2 seconds those people are just going to rise back up, and then that just triples the amount of the army you just killed. So it's crazy that didn't show to his advantage more, even though I mean it did, because his army kept growing, so that advantage. But like using that as a tactic more during his battles, like every couple. I mean, you don't want to overdo it because that would kind of feel stupid. But like, because you didn't want to, every 10 minutes he's just like putting his hands up, like, come on, keep getting up. But like, you wanted to use it as a tactic in certain moments, in certain times where like, okay, I'm really starting to lose my army. Okay, let's just start. Let's bring back the odds here.
Yeah, and I think what's troubling is it was not the last episode of season 7, but the end of the episode before that is when he turns the dragon, right?
Yeah.
What did he do once he turned the dragon? Like, all you got was he showed up at the wall at the end of season 7 and tore down Eastwatch. And then you got almost nothing out of them until the Battle of Winterfell. So for me, I feel like in the grand scheme of things, the turning of the dragon was just like to even the odds, like you said. But I could have done without it. Like, that dragon could have just been killed along the way somewhere else. Like back in Marine in season 6, when Daenerys was in Marine at the pyramid, one of the dragons could have just died then. They could have killed it then. And then you would only have 2 dragons. And then Jaime could have killed Daenerys and taken claimed the one dragon, taken it back to King's Landing, and then you'd have Jon Snow with the other dragon, and then you could have the Night King and the dead win the Battle of Winterfell despite the dragon. Like, they could have found a way to harm it.
Right.
They could have taken so many dead people from Winterfell and charged on King's Landing.
Yep.
And then you could have the dragons duking it out with each other between Jon Snow on the dragon and Jaime Lannister on a dragon fighting each other, while the Night King just is like, look at all these zombie back here that I'm bringing in to just crush, right?
I mean, I still don't think it would have been a disadvantage because he had so many perks to the way he, had his army, because he, like you said, he can just raise up anybody. So even if he was about to lose, he can just raise his hand up, and anybody who was dead just became his allies. So, it would be a never ending fight. So that's how crazy it would have been. Like, it would have, if the Night King, obviously the Night King wouldn't have been killed, it would have just been going until nobody was there. So
yeah,
I mean, that is obviously the tactic. Obviously, they pretty much go until there's nobody there, and just like I said, like how John said, like, these guys do not tire. They do not, they just keep on going. So, it's not like a normal army where, it's like a normal human being where they can tire out. Like, these guys do not stop coming. And when you think they're done, they're not. They just keep on coming back. So
yeah, and I mean, I just keep thinking, like, okay, if these people didn't die, what would they be doing, and what about the other people, right?
Right.
So I think about Euron Greyjoy, who was the Greyjoy that was coming after Cersei in season 7.
Yes.
Like, trying to marry her. And I really feel like you could have had Euron kill Jaime, and then you could have had Tyrion kill Euron.
Mm.
And then they're both gone. Tyrion's still alive. And then you have Arya kill Cersei because she's on the list. Because she had her father beheaded, and that would be poetic justice from season 1. Right? And then it's literally just down to the battle of Jon Snow with the Realm against the Night King and the Dead Army. Like, that would have been fine with me. I know, like, there are so many ways that you could have twisted and turned this, but we're talking about, what about the other possibilities here? Would we have liked that better? I just don't like how they banished Jon Snow beyond the wall at the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
He killed Daenerys, and they're like, oh, you murdered a queen, so you gotta go. But because you murdered the queen, we have better land to navigate and rule and navigate again.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to suffer for your crime that made all of our lives better.
Right.
Thank you,
but you gotta go.
And you know what? Bran can go sit up at the tree that the other three-eyed raven sat in. Three-eyed raven, three-eyed raven. That's where he should be, and just oversee everything and be like, yep, I took over this old hag spot, and it's fine. You didn't have to be the ruler of the realm. We didn't have to get Sansa Stark emancipating the North away from the others. Yeah. just for the sake of saying, oh, well, we get a queen out of all of this because we didn't get Daenerys. You
Come
know
on,
what?
give it to me. I know you're boiling up a lot of that Sansa energy. Give it to me.
Okay. Joffrey should have killed Sansa back in season 3.
Whoopsie.
Okay. That's how I
Whoopsie.
feel about her. And that's how I feel about her. Waste. And that's how I feel about her with Joe Jonas and all of the shenanigans that she's pulling there. You should have died in Game of Thrones, okay?
Whoopsie.
God. Okay.
Yeah.
Adjective. 47
As you can
was
see, we're big fans. As you can see, we're big fans of Sansa here.
I couldn't stand her from the beginning, man. And like, yes, they did a good job making us feel bad about her with the Ramsay Bolton storyline. And we will talk about that in part 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would have been okay with her dying. You know what? Ramsay Bolton, and this can be a segue into part 2. Ramsay Bolton could have done what he did with Sansa with Arya Stark, and Arya never had to go with the faceless man over here and learn how to be daredevil jujitsu. Blind, can't see jack.
Whoopsie.
I don't care. That Ramsay Bolton storyline could have happened with Arya, and it would have made him even worse because she was so much younger, right? And Sansa could have been dead long ago, and I wouldn't have given a flying
whoopsie.
Okay, so
yeah, that will be some alternatives we can talk about with Arya in coming parts of like about her storyline. Like, what if she never met the faceless man? What if she never? How would she have like, you know, gained a lot of her skills if it wasn't for the faceless man and stuff like that? So, I mean, if you guys are liking this concept of the alternative ending, I guess we can kind of say now alternative endings and like our opinions on how these concept work came from the storylines. If you like this, make sure to stick around for part 2, where we're going to be going into seasons 5 and 6 next.
And they're season 6. There's so much to cover. It's almost an episode in itself. So yeah, with each part, these episodes are going to get longer because there's so much more story to backtell. For sure. And
this was fun. Definitely fun.
Excellent idea. I mean, this just rolled off the tongue for the both of us because we both love the show so much that we've watched it more than once. We feel how we do about the ending, which if you didn't catch it, you weren't listening to the past 45 minutes. But yeah, I think along the way of even just adjusting, like, okay, well, if you did this differently, this wouldn't have made sense. And then and it actually brought a little realization for me as to like getting good with how some of it concluded. It's just there wasn't enough TV time for like those stories to unfold the way that they deserve to after such a long build over a decade plus and a great story. So thank y'all for tuning in and listening. I'm actually really excited to talk about this again, but I'm going to want to tune back into seasons 5 and 6 to just be like, oh, this. And there's stuff from season 5 that is so good. There's so much more with Jon Snow. There's so much with Stannis Baratheon that we have to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
There's the absolute most cringe, awful, horrifying part of the show that we're going to talk about in part 2. And Anthony, if you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, I'll tell you after we sign off. And
it's gonna get juicy.
It's gonna get bloody, ugly, and we don't give any Okay.
Yes.
Dude, and I know the idea of doing alternative endings for this episode was my idea. You brought up Game of Thrones, and I was like, we gotta do this. We're doing this.
Yeah.
So thank you. Because this episode's been fun, and I am actually super looking forward to the next installments from seasons 5 and 6, 3 and 4, and 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is going to be a long one because we got to cover the stuff from the beginning, and if this didn't pan out, how did everything after that butterfly effect pan out? It's going to be...
It'll be good. It's going to be
lengthy.
good.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Just love you, brother. Thank you for being here with me for another episode here. Thank you all for tuning in with us. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit us up on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram at OneSetPod. Hit us up on the Gmail, onesetpod@gmail.com. Pick up some merch and subscribe to our Patreon so you can get some exclusive content. And we will see you on the next episode.
All the love. Thank you.